2011 Toyota Tacoma, 2.7 liter, 5-speed manual, 4x4. It's making a rattling noise in the clutch area, so I did pull it out, and turns out the pressure plate failed. One of the pieces came off, one of the fins is broken, so it was making a rattling noise when driving. Also, when it engaged or disengaged properly. From the looks of it, it's probably got 70 to 90,000 miles on it. The friction material on the clutch itself is not too bad, but you can see it's getting close to the rivet, so it was probably due in the next 10 or 15,000 miles. Also pulled the flywheel. It's one thing I recommend to do, is either have it resurfaced or replaced, but you can see the heat marks on here. I don't know if it has warpage, but we're buying a brand new one. Anytime you put a new clutch on, it's just a good habit to have two new mating surfaces. So this will be brand new, your clutch will be brand new, and your pressure plate will be brand new. So all three surfaces will be brand new, and they'll mate to each other versus having an old surface and a new one, which then you might have high spots, low spots. And sometimes with these pressure plates, if you do not replace them and they have heat spots and it is slightly warped, you'll get chattering. When you engage or disengage the clutch, you'll feel kind of like a chattering. So I'm just going to go briefly over of what I had to remove. I'll try to go in order of what I removed to make it easier for everyone else who tackles this job. So step one, I ended up pulling this boot off right here, the cover. Then you're going to have your shifter in here, like this. So there's another boot down there. It's 2 bolts. You'll remove that guy. Then you're going to have this inside the transmission. To remove this part, this collar right here, you're going to push down. It has a spring in it. Push down and rotate counterclockwise about a quarter to half turn, and then it's going to pop out. You can see the notches right there. Once that releases, you can pull out this whole shifter, set it aside. You're done in here now. That's step one. Step two, what I ended up doing was going to the drive line. This is 4-wheel drive, so there'd be 2 of them. One off the transfer case, one to the back. You can see I have the transmission already pulled. So back there, the rear differential, there's 4 bolts. And then up to the back of the transmission, which right here, it has 4. So those studs, I left them in there. I just loosened up the nuts. Also, one good habit I would recommend, I don't know if it's necessary, but I'd mark it. Might benefit from possibly some kind of balancing or vibration in the future, but I just like to mark it, so I'll put it back exactly how it was. Same with the rear diff. That's the first one I removed. Second one's here. Same thing. I just took a paint pen and I marked it. 4 bolts here. Then it's going to go up to your front differential right there, where that flange is. Okay. And there's some wiring harnesses on here, some clips. Couple, looks like a couple lines on here, maybe for breathers for the gearbox. I haven't drained the fluid yet, but I will be draining it and putting in royal purple. Same with the rear diff. So there's going to be a couple clips and wires, just pretty basic on that. Then you're going to have your slave cylinder, which is going to be mounted here to the fork. 2 bolts. 1, 2. And then it's going to have a bracket right here on that bolt, which this bolt's actually going to hold. Sorry about that. I ran out of memory on my phone. So to continue, on the slave cylinder, the 2 bolts, and then 1 bolt right here, which is going to hold the bracket, which has a hydraulic line coming off. And here's your fork. I also removed the cross member, which is 2 bolts here, 2 bolts on the other side, 4 bolts on the bottom of the transmission to this mount right here. So you can see here's the cross member. Right there's that guy. Okay. One thing I'm going to recommend, I just purchased this yesterday, is the transmission jack. Harbor Freight, $150. Well worth it. Without it, it would have been quite a task to pull this transmission down, considering the length and then the weight of it being offset from the transfer case. But well worth the money. it brought it down easily, and I'm sure it's going to put it up there pretty quickly and easily. Okay. Go in here to look at the throw-up bearing. See, it's pretty dry. I already have it loose, waiting on the new one. We'll clean this shaft up really good here, the splines, put a little bit of grease on there, clean up the whole housing area, degrease it, and then blow it out. Let's see what else there is. So, over here, let me reposition. I can show you the bolts on the housing. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 10 bolts on there. Or excuse me, I think there'll be 11. Yep, 11. So here's the other side. So on your flywheel, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bolts. Then I believe you have 4 on your pressure plate. And here's your bolts again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I'm also going to do the rear main. Oops. Also do the rear main, which I highly recommend. Since you're already in here, just take care of it. It's only like 27 bucks. Pretty easy to remove and install. Because if you don't replace this, it ends up leaking later. Then you have to remove everything back again to tackle this. One quick note, pilot bearing. So I do have a special tool that removes it, which is this guy. And it comes with a slide hammer. As you tighten, it'll actually expand that. So I tried this several times, it did not work. So I went to the bread trick. Here's the piece of bread. What I did is I took one piece and I would pack it in here. Then I took one of the housing bolts and I would just tap on it with the hammer in the hole. Kept going, pack more bread, just keep going. Be patient, it'll work. Eventually all this bread was in there and I kept tapping on it, and then it popped it out. So that's a really good trick to do in case the pilot bearing's stuck. That's about it. There's your starter. Yeah, just be reassemble. One thing I would recommend that I'm starting to do as a common practice is putting a couple drops of blue Loctite. Blue, you can maybe use red, but I prefer blue. On these bolts here for your flywheel to your crank, and then also the pressure plate. And then we'll reassemble everything, drain the transmission, put new fluid, same with rear diff, and then I'll flush the hydraulic fluid from the master cylinder to the slave cylinder. That's it.